Is it a challenge to have teachers and peers less informed on political issues than you are? And have you gotten pushback in your involvement?
So obviously I'm really um, interested and really active in this field. And so a lot of times when I'm talking to my friends about it, they don't really understand the gravity of some of the things I'm talking about. And I don't necessarily blame them. In school, we've never had a class that's like teaching you how to stay active in politics or how to be involved or how to like stay educated at least or informed. They a lot of times like I remember in my AP US history class, I would make like connections from history to now, and then I'd ask a question about it, and it would kind of be like they kind of like not want to talk about it purposefully because and I get it. Teachers are scared to address things about politics because they don't want to come off as giving their own influence or bias. And I completely understand that, but them not addressing these issues and not talking about politics at all makes it so like kids think that politics isn't really influencing them or has an effect on their life. And that's one thing I really want to like work on is like I think there needs to be more civic classes. I think there needs to in history curriculum there needs to be ties like there need you can I can make these connections. I'm sure there are like other people who are a lot more educated in this topic that can make other connections, and I think those need to be drawn because it also not only is it important for people to learn about like how history can become the future, but also it makes it more relatable. If I'm learning about unions in the 1930s, I want to see how that connects to now because I don't care about unions in the 1930s, but I do care about how unions affect us today. And so it just makes it more interesting to learn about if you connect it to things that are relatable to students. Um, and then teachers. So all my teachers, I mean, I have whenever I've corrected them or like just added some extra information that maybe they didn't add, they're like, oh, like that's really interesting. Like none of them has ever pushed back on me, which I'm really again, I've had great teachers. So but other times sometimes I know things that just randomly I just know like because I pay attention to the news or whatever, but I'll like refrain myself from like you know in like giving this extra information because I'm like, I'll let the teacher like control their class. I feel bad when I like interrupt and I'm like, oh, like did you know this? And then like it's only me and the teacher kind of interacting because again, none of the other kids are really knowing what I'm talking about. And when I say none, I mean like 80% are. There's 20% that are really politically active, and I really love having conversations with people who are my age about the future because we have the same skin in the game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you feel like in those interactions with your peers, do you feel like people are more or less on the same wavelength in terms of views, or is there a divide there? And then also where do people your age kind of go to express some of these things? Is it private chats or do they do that on
Mhm.
social?
So yeah, all but one, or I would say all but like a handful, like two or three, have more or less agreed with me. But I think that's more because they, I don't really know if they actually agree with me or they just kind of said they agreed with me because they don't want to get into like a debate with me. But I've had really interesting debates with like like a conservative friend I have, and we again this like the friend that I was saying with that like we both agreed with corruption, but like he just came from like a different viewpoint and I respected that because I was able to understand where he was coming from, and a lot of times I don't understand where other people are coming from, and that makes it a lot harder to kind of empathize with them or see their viewpoint. um but I and kind of funny story, but I became really close with him last year because he's a year older than me. And throughout the year, he went from like light right leaning or like really kind of far right to centrist. And all our mutual friends would be like, "You're the reason," because I just like pull him every day, just a little bit. Um, so yeah, I think that those are the most kind of meaningful conversations, is when someone disagrees with you, but they're willing to listen. Um, and same thing, I would be willing to listen to them as well. And I met this friend through Model UN. So that would be, we'd have a lot of conversations about international and foreign policy. And that's an area where I admittedly like, don't know as much as I do about domestic policy. And so I would be really interested in those conversations as well, about like what's going on in the world and how does that affect us.
Wow. How old are you?
I'm 18.
Okay. Man, I'm trying to think of what I was doing at 18.
What were you doing?
I don't know. I definitely was not thinking about politics. I guarantee that.
Yeah, I mean, oh, and then to address the second kind of part of where people talk about this, I would say a lot of people, and I enjoy this, but a lot of people like text me specifically because they know I'm interested in politics. They're like, oh, like, look, did you see this? Or like, and I love that. I love when people text me and they're like, oh, like, you definitely know about it. So like, let me ask you. I also see, not particularly my friends or people I know personally, but I see on TikTok, a lot of young people are very active. On Twitter. On Twitter, people, it's like more of like snarky comments, like funny comments about politics, but it's like, at least you know about it. Like, I think that's really, I would say any sort of engagement with politics is a good thing. And people, I think it's kind of like a meme, but like people always like repost those Instagram like store, like those posts that people make and like repost it over and over again. People do that. That I kind of see as performative if you aren't really, well, I mean, I guess you're doing something by reposting, and I'm assuming you read it, but I think there's more that could be done on top of that.